Nope.
Please rise as you are able. I now call this meeting of City Council to order.
We acknowledge that this meeting is taking place on the traditional land of the Anishinaabe people. The Anishinaabe include the Odawa, Ojibwe, and Potawatomi nations, collectively known as the Three Fires Confederacy. We're dedicated to honoring Indigenous history and culture and committed to moving forward in the spirit of reconciliation and respect with all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people. Please be seated. Welcome everyone to our virtual City Council meeting. I'd like to remind everybody, once again, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, City Council is continuing to practice physical distancing with members of Council, the Executive Management Team, and City Clerk participating via video conference. Members of the senior leadership team who have reports on tonight's agenda are not visible, but are available to answer any questions we might have tonight. The first item on tonight's Council agenda is the confirmation of the minutes for April 12th, 2021. The minutes of the City Council meeting held on that date have been circulated. Are there any corrections to the minutes? Okay, seeing none, the minutes are adopted as printed and circulated. We have two matters under awards and recognition for this evening. And the first one is a very positive one, as most awards and recognition items are, but it is the winners, to recognize the winners of the I Love Barrie contest. Earlier this year, the city welcomed entries from youth sharing why they love Barrie. The 5th annual I Love Barrie contest was open to all elementary aged, school-aged students in the city, and we received over 110 entries to the contest. Students from 19 different elementary schools submitted artwork and short stories. Contest winners were selected based on their originality, positivity, and expressiveness, and we have them joining us on the phone tonight to talk very briefly about their work. We do have the winners and their family members available online this evening. So I will announce each of them or give their names each in turn, and then we'll have an opportunity just to hear from the first couple of them. And then our intermediate division winner will actually be reading their submission tonight. So our primary division winner is first, and that is Jack Prestwich, grade 3 at Asikanac Public School. Hi, Jack. Welcome to City Council.
Hi.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about your artwork that you sent in for I Love Barrie?
Yeah, it was a picture of Cancellation Bay.
And why did you decide to do a picture of Cancellation Bay?
Well, because I couldn't really think of anything else until I actually thought of it, and then we went over to we went to Manette's Point, and we got an easel and a stool and we painted it. It got a little chilly, so we went home and we finished up.
I bet, but look at that. We've got your picture up on the screen now and it looks fantastic. It looks like we can see some birds and the beach, and thank you for painting the bay. You know, I would tell you the bay is one of my favorite things about the city too. And I think that's just a fantastic piece of work. Thank you so much. And congratulations, Jack. You're our winner. Well, stay on the line with us. We are going to have an opportunity when we're done here for all of us to congratulate you. But congratulations, Jack. Stick with us for another few minutes, okay?
Okay.
Our junior division winner is Sadie Mitten, grade 6 at West Bayfield Elementary School. Sadie, welcome to Barrie City Council. If we can just get Sadie up on the screen there too. Are you with us? Sorry, just bear with us just a minute here. Sadie, can you hear me?
Hi,
There you are. Hi, welcome to Barrie City Council, Sadie, and congratulations.
thank you.
And if we can get Sadie's piece up on the screen there too. There we go. That's fantastic. Tell us about this, Sadie. Tell us about what we're looking at and why you did it.
I decided to draw all of the things that I really enjoyed doing with my family. I really enjoyed going to the parks, going to the beaches on nice days. We walked at the waterfront every single day, all the time last year, and we really missed going to Winterfest last year, and we love doing the walking trails.
So there's so much in this. And so you basically gave us a picture of all your favorite things. And a lot of these things are things that we can do safely during COVID, right? So we were doing a lot of them, especially going
Yeah.
for walks, using the walking trails and stuff like that, right?
Yes.
This is an amazing piece, Sadie, and thank you for making that big heart for Barrie right at the center of it all and showing us coming off of that all the things you love about our city. I think it's really great that both you and Jack highlighted our waterfront, because so many people enjoy that, but it really kind of does define our city, doesn't it? Because very, very few cities are lucky enough to have the kind of waterfront we have. And I would say nobody has the kind of waterfront we have. So I really appreciate this. Thank you, Sadie, and congratulations. Stay on the line, stay on the call with us here. And we'll go now to our intermediate division winner, who is Eden Goretta from grade 7 at St. John Paul II Catholic School. Eden, can we get you up on screen with us?
Hello. Did this work?
Is it working?
I'm not sure.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, good.
Welcome to Barrie City Council. Congratulations. Your written submission was fantastic, and that is you are our intermediate division winner. And I think you're going to read this for us. Is that right?
Yeah, thank you.
All right, go ahead.
Okay. Why I love Barrie. I believe that the people make the city, and the city shapes who we are. Barrie can make you feel safe and bring people together. Whether you're volunteering at a shelter or buying coffee for the person behind you at Tim Hortons, these simple acts of kindness define how we view Barrie and its people. Take our reliable police force, heroic firefighters, and life-saving paramedics. We depend on these courageous men and women every day. With all the hustle and bustle of everyday life, we still manage to make time for our loved ones, be it relaxing at Barrie's gorgeous waterfront, enjoying a novel at the Painswick Library, or exploring the weekly farmers market. Needless to say, summer has its fun, but winter is a whole different experience. Barrie is famous for a magical Winterfest, where you can do exciting things like sledding, skating, and my personal favorite, eating maple taffy. But when it comes to my family, going out to sushi restaurants is our ideal weekend treat. My favorite is Noble Cuisine on Fairview. Me and my friends love eating fried ice cream there together. Another fantastic thing about Barrie is the dog park. I love taking my Australian Shepherd there and playing fetch. One of my favorite summer activities is enjoying the water park on the beach with friends. It's a great way to cool off and have tons of fun at the same time. On the other hand, the Painswick Library is the absolute best way to spend a rainy day. But the best part of Barrie isn't a building or landmark. The true best part of Barrie is the community that inhabits it. Without the people, our wonderful city wouldn't even exist. Like I said, the people make the city, and I'm proud to say I live in a city like Barrie.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much. Eden, that was absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for this, for sharing what you love about the city. You clearly, you get out and about, you've got a lot of different interests, and it's amazing. All three of you touched on the waterfront and the way we use it and the way people use it. But you're absolutely right to say cities are only as great as the people that make them and build them and are committed to them going forward. And thank you for reminding us of that with your incredible message tonight. So can everybody on the call, we'll take a bit of a risk here and try and do the Zoom clap. Would everybody join with me in congratulating our 3 I Love Barrie Contest Award winners tonight?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stay with us for a minute, guys. I wanted to go to Councillor McCann for your comments. Councillor McCann, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman, and well spoken. We started this campaign 5 years ago, actually in Ward 10, and it was just inspired by some senior staff and I that this would be a great way to integrate, students into politics. And, listening and reading Eden's essay story, she made a point by saying, bringing people together. And that's exactly what this competition and this contest is. Yes, we have 3 winners and it's really beautiful, but this really is a beautiful moment for me, and hopefully it's a beautiful moment for council. And I know it's a beautiful moment for all these residents and all these kids and all the families that get together, and school teachers and get together. And during COVID, to have over 100 entries with little marketing and everyone just so distracted and having so much COVID, distraction and fatigue. I just think that seeing these pictures and highlighting what's great about our city and what's great about the most important asset we have in this city, which is the people who I'm looking at right now and the people that are watching, is our community. And so I could go on and on and on, but I won't. I just want to thank all. I want to thank Jack. I want to thank Sadie, and I want to thank Eden for all the time and that. Thank you. Yeah. And really, I just want to end by saying, this competition, I hope, goes on way before I'm long gone, because it's about investing in our most important asset, which is our youth. And I believe, bridging that gap between elementary school kids and politics is so super important to bring a healthy community. And I think that I'll just leave it by saying, building a connection, a true connection, is what this is really all about. So thank you very much. I will see you next year. And I expect all 3 of you to put submissions in again. And good luck. Thank you.
Eden, Sadie, Jack, thank you for being with us tonight at Barrie City Council. And most of all, thank you for sharing your incredible work with us. We really appreciate it. Congratulations once again. Good night. Good night, Sadie. Good night, Jack. Good night, Eden.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, almost impossible to follow that, but we do get to follow that with the Monarch Ultra Run event, which is definitely an interesting piece to learn about tonight as well. That's our second awards and recognition item tonight. There is a video to be played, I believe, and then a brief presentation. So we'll run the video now if we can, Mr. Nolan.
In 2019, we did the impossible. We ran from Canada to Mexico. 46 runners for all over North America ran the migration route of the monarch butterfly, a continuous relay run of 4,300 kilometers in 47 days. The runners faced extreme weather conditions, battled injuries, ran through highways and desolated landscapes, all that with the mission of raising awareness towards pollinator conservation.
Really cool project. So glad y'all are making this happen.
This is amazing.
So privileged to be doing this with the Monarch Ultra.
We really think the Monarch Ultra is a way to connect us, but also to do something positive.
Ellos vinieron desde Canadá para sensibilizarnos sobre la importancia que tiene la ruta migratoria de la mariposa monarca.
Their populations are in steep decline. You know, there's many reasons for that. It's pesticide use, climate change, habitat loss, disease. And it's not just monarch butterflies, it's all pollinators that are in decline. And without them, our food security systems would be hurt, as well as all of our ecosystems. They pollinate 80% of the flowering species on this earth. So without pollinators, in 50 years, we would have nothing.
We ran for the monarchs then, and we're doing it again this year. The 2021 Monarch Ultra takes place in Canada, beginning in Peterborough and ending 1,800 kilometers and 21 days later in Barrie, Ontario. We want to see massive community involvement, like the ones we experienced in Mexico, when hundreds of people came out to cheer the runners and join the movement of taking action towards environmental conservation. This year we will be raising money for Cancelation Environment Center in Peterborough. We want to support their fantastic efforts in environmental education. It's a run like no other Canada has ever seen, along the scenic Trans-Canada and waterfront trails, through cities and towns, parks and lake shores. Come and join us, either as a runner, a cheerleader, or as an environmental advocate. We need your legs, your voice, and your presence to tell the whole country that we care about our natural environment.
All right. Thank you very much. Fantastic reel there. And with us tonight, we have Carlotta James and Gunther Schubert from Monarch Ultra, who are going to give us an update and a presentation on this event. So with one of the really interesting aspects of this out of the bag in the description of the route there, Carlotta and Gunther, please tell us more about the Monarch Ultra event. And welcome to Barrie City Council.
Thank you very much. I apologize for being tardy. I was giving another presentation to my own city council to support active transportation, and I was trying to ensure that they didn't collide, but they did. My name is Carlotta James. I'm the co-founder of the Monarch Ultra, a relay run documentary and conservation project. I just want to say a sincere thank you to Mayor Jeff Lehman and Barrie City Councillors, and a massive shout out to Anne-Marie, who's been a superstar from the beginning. If everyone in the world had her spirit and energy, this world would be a better place. I'm going to jump right into things because I know I have a very short time and I tend to talk a lot. I'm going to see if I can share screen with everybody. Here it is. Okay. You saw that 3-minute clip that our director made on the Monarch Ultra and our plans for this year. And I'm just going to give you a bit of history as how this project was created. In 2019, a team of ultra runners, filmmakers, and pollinator advocates ran from Peterborough, Ontario to Macheros, Mexico in a 47-day journey that took us that took a lot out of our hearts and souls, but it changed us for the better. We ran over 4,000 kilometers. We ran through hundreds and hundreds of cities and met with the most incredible activists and teachers and mayors like Mayor Jeff Lehman, people that just care so much for their community and to make it a better world. And so from this journey, we decided to do more. And so that's why I'm going to speak to you, because we plan on doing it again this fall. This image here that you see is when we arrived in Mexico. The Mexican government was there with flags and students and t-shirts that they'd made for us. And they were very excited to host us after traveling for such a long time. So, why are we doing this? Why am I so committed to this? Monarch butterflies represent a group of insects called pollinators. And for the last 2 decades, they have been declining, because of pesticide use and climate change and deforestation and all these human caused reasons. And so rather than feeling depressed about this, it is very depressing, I wanted to do something positive for the earth and for my community and to connect all these communities in the migratory route. And so we decided that it was time to get out there and run for monarch butterflies and see, what their flight path looked like. They also, our route, I should say, was the same route as the monarch butterflies. So they take the same length as our relay run, 7 weeks, 6 to 7 weeks. And the place that we ended up is also where they end up in monarch butterfly sanctuaries. So our goal is an ambitious one, unite communities along the migratory path with common goals of earth stewardship and biodiversity conservation. And in this case, we get to now unite communities in Southern Ontario because we will be running in Southern Ontario this time. This is the route that we took. Peterborough is right at the top, and you see Mexico City right at the bottom. When I think back to this journey, I still can't believe we did it. But we did it because of community support. We're a volunteer team of passionate parents and environmentalists and teachers and educators. And, we just felt compelled to do this. And running is a feeling of freedom, just like what monarch butterflies have. And so we really felt that this channel of running was the perfect way to bring one species with another species together. I'm just going to show you a few images. This was our launch party on September 19th, 2 years ago in our own community. Everyone came out for it. It was a really beautiful, powerful event. And we're hoping, obviously depending with COVID and how things are this fall, that that we can have the same sort of impact with galvanizing communities and getting kids out and families. And that's, of course, if it's safe to do so. And I hope it will be. When we crossed the border into Reynosa, Tamaulipas, it was my day to run a 50-kilometer ultra, and I was greeted by 400 school kids who had made these signs, and they were so excited, to come out. And I met the Minister of Education, and she said to me, these kids all come from really poor schools, and yet they worked on these art projects for weeks because they were so excited that someone was representing and running for monarchs. And so, I'll never forget that conversation because we have a lot here in Canada and we can always do more for our neighbors to the south, or south of the States, I should say. There's Gunther Schubert in the corner. Let me just see if I can move this. We were also invited to give school presentations, which was also really exciting. On this particular day at the American School Foundation, monarch butterflies were flying above us. And so the kids kept saying, monarcas, monarcas. They were so excited, to see monarchs as we were giving our presentation. So it was quite a cool event. Just like I am doing right now to the Barrie City Council, we gave council presentations during our journey. And for this one, this was a really important one. The San Antonio City Council was passing a really important climate action plan. And so I was, it was a pretty historic moment, the 4th largest city in the United States to pass this climate action plan. And shortly after I gave my presentation, I had to go back to be with the runners because we're also supporting runners, I got a text message saying that it was almost unanimously passed 10-1. So it was really powerful to be able to present to the city council and then that they passed the plan as well. And this is the final city of where our run ended, Macheros, Mexico. We decided to end it here because there's a sanctuary there called the Cerro Pelon Monarch Butterfly Sanctuary. And that community has been protecting monarchs for decades and decades, and they also needed financial help. Many people know of the sanctuaries in Michoacan. This one is in the state of Mexico, and they don't receive government funding. And so we wanted to highlight this sanctuary and this community through our documentary and through our social media and through our networking. And so since then, you know, last year I did another fundraiser with my husband. I ran a 50K ultra, and all the money was sent to Macheros, Mexico, and it was over $5,000, and that employed 2 forest protectors. And so, you know, everything that we can do, we should do it. It's so vital, this work. So now I'm going to talk about the Monarch Ultra Relay Run 2021, which involves Barrie. So exciting. I hope I still have a bit of time. I do. Okay, thank you. So this one is much shorter. It's not going to be 7 weeks. It's going to be 3 weeks. And we will be running along the Trans-Canada and the Waterfront Trail, and they have become our partners. They know we're doing this and they fully support it. Instead of 4,300 kilometers, we'll be doing 1,800 kilometers. So it's everything shorter, but it's doable. We'll start on September 19th in Peterborough and end in Barrie, which I'm so excited about. And along the way, we'll be raising awareness about pollinators and everything that they represent. And we're also fundraising for Camp Kawartha this time. Usually we fundraise for a monarch conservation organization. This time we decided to do something local. If you haven't heard of Camp Kawartha, it's one of the best camps in Canada. This is their 100-year anniversary, and they do so much for nature education and youth stewardship and youth empowerment. This is our route. And if you look at day 21, it's been switched around. After we had conversations with the Rotary Club of Barrie and the Kempelfelt Rotary Club and Anne-Marie and a bunch of other fantastic people, they said, you need to end in Barrie. So that this is an old route. We will actually end in Barrie. We will start in Victoria Harbour. Every day we'll be starting at 8 a.m. and we should be done around 5 or 6 p.m. depending on the pace of the runner. Each day there'll be 2 runners running 30 or 50 kilometers, and we will be supporting them every 10K. And then we'll also have another team, you know, to go out to talk to mayors and conservation groups and schools. And we want to make as much noise as possible about this. That's why we're doing this run. It's not to be quiet about it. We want, you know, kids to get involved, just like Terry Fox, and he is, you know, his legacy is amazing. We want the Monarch Ultra to represent protection for the environment and conservation. And that's kind of our tagline, you know, running for a cause, but really running for earth stewardship. And that's it. I hope I was under time. And if I wasn't, I apologize profusely.
Not to worry at all. Thank you so much. This presentation is just fantastic, and obviously your energy for this event. What an incredible thing to run all the way to Nuevo Leon and into Macheras and follow the migration route. That's amazing. And for your whole team to have done that, and now to make an annual event, even though, you know, with COVID, obviously, I'm sure lots has changed. But thank you so much for this presentation. Are there questions from members of council? Councillor Morales and then Councillor Kung.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. Thanks for the presentation. Do you have any recommendations that residents can do as they're about to kind of get into gardening season in their own yards, in their own space, to kind of encourage a more friendly, hardy environment?
Yeah, I mean, I will always say de-lawn, take your lawns out and convert it into a pollinator habitat. I mean, unless you have kids and they need space to run around, I understand that, of course, but convert it into pollinator habitat. Lawns are so much more work. And, every time you use a lawnmower, it pollutes the air. It's also noise pollution. Whereas I was just in my garden today. I had a really stressful weekend and I went into my garden and I was surrounded by bumblebees, and that changes everything. I know it sounds really naive, but it works. I mean, these species have been around since the time of dinosaurs. And we need to respect them and do more for them. But I would say Councillor Morales, invite citizens to de-lawn and plant native plant species.
Thank you. And you led me into my next one. See, Councillor McCann, that's how you pronounce my name. Not Morales. I think I'll make it into a question somehow. Extremely jealous on how you can roll your R's. I can't roll my R's. I don't like spicy food. I can't dance. I don't drink coffee. I don't like soccer. I didn't immigrate from Colombia. I think they kicked me out. But very jealous of your how you roll your R's. Don't you agree? Is how I turned it into the question. So thank you for your representation, and I think the partnerships and exposure that you're giving this program, and looking to see how it evolves.
Gracias.
Gracias.
Thanks, Councillor Morales. Councillor Kungle.
Thank you, Worship, through you to Carlotta and Gunter. So great to see you, and thank you for bringing the great messaging and showcasing some of the work that you've been very active with, from an education to a policy and engagement, both nationally and internationally. So I'm wearing my Monarch poncho because I am expecting to at least start in Victoria Harbour. I won't make it the whole way, but then I'll pick you back up and Barrie on that last leg. But there's a lot of us starting to learn about what you're doing and your journey in Ontario, between Peterborough and then through to Barrie. And so I guess my question to you is, I'm aware Barrie Rotary has been actively involved on several fronts and part of our conversations. Can you share more a bit about if members of the team are able to stay in Barrie the day before, the day after, and are looking to engage residents or to highlight some of our showcase pieces around pollinator gardens? And if there's an opportunity to link schools and/or residents and some of our environmental groups with you?
I'll speak to all of them. We definitely need accommodation. We have a very tiny budget. So if anybody will willingly open up their home, we will be the nicest guests. We have lots of stories. We are funny people and we're very loving. So yes, we're looking for accommodation for 5 people. That's number one. Number two, we hope to stay in Barrie 2 nights, not just 1 night, because we really want to check out your town or your city, and we want to see the pollinator gardens and your places of interest. Our province was hit so hard because of COVID, and it's still being hit. And so this fall, if we can do some, ecotourism promotions, let's do it. I mean, and be really proud of our province. Because we have our neighbors to the south, we always seem to get sort of silenced by what's happening in Canada. And so I really hope to see these great places in Barrie, like pollinator gardens. And third, for the kids, man, this is all for the kids. We've screwed things up. Our generation, my parents, my grandparents, we really have. And so we wouldn't be in this climate catastrophe, this ecological catastrophe, if it wasn't for our generation and our past generation. So if we can get kids to come out, we're really hoping this fall that schools across Ontario learn about this. And while we're running for those 3 weeks, that kids are out there running at lunchtime and during breaks as well, even if it's 1K, 2K. And also, the fall is a great time to plant gardens. And because I know schools can't really do much of that right now, it's just impossible because of COVID, but that would be a great environmental action project as well. So please, if you have connections to the Ministry of Education, please let them know about this, and I will gladly make a presentation, and I will not be late. I apologize for being late to this one.
That's great. And I'll just say thank you, because we come around the bend to May, and the city of Barrie, as Barrie is a bee city, and there's been lots of ongoing work in the past and continues to be a lot of focus through our Communities in Bloom around encouraging residents, be it your front yard, backyard, side yard, or your business, to garden and to actually include different types of flora and fauna that will support our pollinators. So it helps us to kind of bridge into launching our No Mow May, and some reminders about leaving those golden daffodils alone, if you would. But happy to support in any way possible, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Councillor Congo. Councillor McCann.
Coleto, sorry, I appreciate your presentation. I got to say your short presentation and your personality is very infectious, and I was looking forward to hearing your presentation. You know, Mayor Lehman, I think 2.5 years ago, put me on the town of Gown, and I just rolled my eyes saying, "What is this guy up to?" And it actually was a great committee that I was on, because it introduced me to a lady, Jill, who's the president of Bee City. And we actually were able to, as council, make Barrie the 20th bee city in Canada, as Councillor Kungle had just mentioned a few minutes ago. Do you have any interactions with Bee City? Do you integrate it all with them? Do you work with them?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really close with the founder, and you know, it's one of those things. I've been invited to their national conferences. They consider Peterborough a radical bee city. Because I've been working for 5 years to get our city designated as a bee city. It just hasn't happened. And so I've kind of and that's, a staffing thing. It doesn't matter. It's a bureaucratic thing. But at the end of the day, we're just going to still keep building those bee-friendly gardens. Peterborough has over 400 designated bee gardens, pollinator gardens. We've even created a map to show you where those pollinator pathways are. I mean, it's massive. I also own an eco landscaping business, and that's all I build is pollinator gardens. So even though we're not designated as a bee city, Shelley Candle, who was the founder of Bee City, she knows the work we're doing. We're in great partnership. I know Barrie is a bee city. Every time a city or an Indigenous territory or a school gets designated, I'm cheering. So Peterborough is not, but it's okay, because I can't keep fighting that battle. I will fight other battles.
Well, I appreciate that. And sir, I said Jill. It was Shelley that I was introduced, and having you and Shelley in the same room, I'm sure that room would be electrified. Shelley had made such an impact on me. I actually did quite a bit of landscaping in my property 2 years ago, and I actually designated my front yard to become a bee/butterfly sanctuary. And yeah, so I'm looking forward to seeing what the second year has to come. And I guess I just mentioned that, just to let you know that your words aren't going on deaf ears, and what you say matters, and our environment obviously matters. And just keep up the good work. And who knows, maybe you'll see some of our councillor members, running beside you up to Barrie in a few months.
I hope so. It's in 4 months from now. It would be fantastic if each one of you took 2 kilometers, 3 kilometers and ran. When we were in Mexico, all the mayors wanted to run as well, and they had never run. And so I have all these great memories of like mayors running beside me, and he or she would be like out of breath after 500 meters, but because the whole community was watching, they had to keep it up. And then we'd round the corner where the media wasn't there anymore, and then they'd stop and like, okay, no más. No puedo, I can't. So it was pretty funny, but yeah.
Is that the introduction to a blooper roll?
That would never happen here. Never. Thank you very much for this. Thanks, Councillor McCann. Are there any other questions for Ms. James or Mr. Schubert? Okay, seeing none. Thank you again for this. Thank you for creating this and for bringing it to us, and most of all for ending the journey this year in Barrie. And we will look forward to that on the calendar later in the year, when we're going to look forward to a lot more events and getting back together for good causes like this. So thank you very much. Thanks for being with us tonight.
Thank you for listening to us. Look forward to meet you all.
Me too.
Okay, members of council, that was fun. Unfortunately, we now need to deal with an integrity commissioner report. And that's a little bit of a jarring switch, but a very serious matter. And it is that point on our agenda. So we're going to switch over now to report from officers. I will call on Suzanne Craig, our integrity commissioner, who is here to provide her comments concerning her report dated April 22nd. Ms. Craig, welcome back to Barrie City Council.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Lehman, members of council, and those who are listening. I'm here to present a report before you. It is a complaint against the chair of the Downtown BIA, and the complaint was lodged with me on March the 16th, and it states a couple things. Near the beginning, and I'm reading verbatim, near the beginning of the video, Chair Hamilton refers to people in the downtown carrying on like a bunch of, and uses the term, in quotations, Mau Mau. Mau Mau is a derogatory term towards Black people. It originally referred to Kenyans. The second part of the complaint is Chair Hamilton makes several more derogatory and degrading descriptions of people with addictions and or mental health issues. Near the end, another board member tries to say, everyone who lives downtown and walks downtown is a worthy citizen of Barrie, and we should treat everyone as a citizen, but the chair interrupts, preventing him from finishing the sentence by shouting and saying, that is not true. The respondent provided 2 replies to my request, one on March 24th, which included the link to an interview. And part of what was said in that reply was, as chair of the Downtown Barrie BIA Board of Directors and former business owner for 46 years in downtown core, and I quote, I know there is an opioid crisis in our city and agree that a solution to address that issue is needed. He also stated, I also believe that an issue of this nature, one that impacts so many in our community, must take all views into account. He says, upon reflection of the Downtown Barrie BIA Board of Directors in question, I acknowledge my remarks were not in keeping with the principle of respect and issued a public apology on February the 12th. The respondent went on to say, as noted in that apology, my remarks at the BIA meeting were inappropriate and not intended to be harmful. When I received that reply, I determined that I required clarification on how the reply addressed the allegations in the complaint. So I advised the respondent that the code sets out a formal complaint and investigation process. And upon receipt of the formal complaint, I explained that I'm required to follow the process in the complaint procedure. I requested that the respondent clarify his written reply, in particular, as it related to the allegation of the respondent at the meeting making the comment relating to people carrying on like a bunch of Mau Maus. I advised the respondent in my correspondence that, including what the complainant had said, Mau Mau is a derogatory term towards Black people and people of color. It originally referred to Kenyans in a particular tribe and involved in the Mau Mau Rebellion in the 1950s, insurgency against white colonists. Further, I requested that the respondent clarify and reply to the statement made at the end of the meeting, in particular where he said, in reply to everyone who lives downtown and walks downtown is a worthy citizen of Barrie and should treat everyone as a citizen, that's just not true. In the respondent's second reply, he states, first and foremost, I offer my sincere apology for my remarks and the harm they've caused. So, he went on to say he was unaware of the historical origins of the term Mau Mau, and his use of the phrase was not intended to be derogatory. He also went on to say, I also fully regret my statement that suggested individuals with addiction issues in our downtown are unworthy citizens. The complainant had set out in the complaint that the term Mau Mau comes from the name capitalized Mau Mau, a militant African national movement formed among Kenyan people. The English term, as it's now used, has lost its historical significance, and it now is used to suggest that a person's efforts and actions stem only from a desire to commit violent acts, or milder use, to cause disruption or achieve some petty aim. In both the original reply to the complaint and the subsequent additional submissions, I found that the respondent did not explain why he used the term Mau Mau. He did acknowledge he used it. Neither did the respondent advise why, when another board member said everyone in the downtown core that walks downtown is a worthy citizen of Barrie and we should treat everyone as a citizen, that he interrupted and said that is not true. While the respondent has said they, being citizens with mental illness and who suffer from substance addiction and homelessness, are not productive, not contributing citizens, which I found in and of itself a blanket statement that stigmatizes individuals suffering from mental illness, addiction, and homelessness, he then goes on to say that they are worthy, but they lose their worthiness if they are, and I quote, screwing up other people, causing businesses to close, leaving coffee cups, and asking for money. The respondent concludes by saying, this is a collision of two worlds. I found in my investigation that the perception these statements leave with those who had heard the utterances during the meeting is that those people who are viewed by the respondent as not productive, not contributing citizens lose their worthiness because they are not productive and need to be moved out of the downtown core. Within the context of reviewing the whole video of the meeting, it's not only what the respondent says, but it's how he says it. The respondent attempts to qualify his statement regarding worthiness to be eligible to walk downtown by saying those who act in a way that the respondent believes does not cross the line into screwing up other people is worthy. The respondent remarks about individuals with mental illness and substance addiction being not productive or not contributing and therefore screwing up other people is perceived to render them, in the respondent's view, not worthy. To be clear, I want to make it very clear, this is not a human rights tribunal. I am not a human rights tribunal. This investigation, as some believe, is not a determination of whether the respondent is a racist. His utterances are under an investigation, not who he is. His comments were reviewed by my office. I took into consideration his regret for having made these comments. And some have said, well, seeing my report online, other members of council have said things that were more harsh, and you didn't find that there was this need for penalties. I disagree. In determining the appropriateness of the sanctions and the corrective action following the investigation code, I consider and have considered in this case the gravity of the conduct, of the responsibility of the respondent for the conduct, as well as the submission of other parties, review of video, and other relevant information. I don't investigate in a vacuum. In his submissions, the respondent acknowledged an apology as an appropriate response to his utterances. But to be clear, I don't consider where individual lies on the political spectrum, whether they be the respondent or the complainant. In terms of corrective action, I had recommended removal of the chair because of the weight and the importance and the tenor accompanies the role of the chair in an important board in Barrie. I recommended as condition for remaining on the BIA board that the member attend human rights training, including addiction as a mental illness awareness. I don't know. I didn't know. I apologize. This is all recognized, and I did recognize that these statements were made. Training suggests an opportunity to learn about different people, different circumstances, the colonial foundation of racism, such that certain words and certain phrases are so embedded in our common parlance that one uses them without knowledge of what they mean or the harm that they bring and the reference to denigration. One's illness, one's addiction, one's circumstance is tied to the definition of their humanity or worthiness, and this is not acceptable. To those who suggest a lack of equity in my recommended penalties and sanctions with this particular investigation and past investigations, I would invite them to reread my reports. I don't give anyone a pass. I have a role. It is to apply the rules of the code, and that's what I did, and that's what I've done in the past. Whether one imputes a historical reference to a revolt and uprising in Africa, or whether one suggests the violent and barbaric nature of individuals generally, the term Mau Mau is a loaded term. Derogatory, at best it connotes unrestrained violent behavior, and at its worst iteration, it represents a racist slur against people of color. Either way, the term, you, the respondent, refers to someone in the downtown core and represents conduct under your code that ought reasonably to be known to be inappropriate, offensive, insulting, and derogatory. I have acknowledged in the report before the respondent's regret for having made the statements that he made, and that he suggested that individuals with addiction issues in Barrie downtown are unworthy citizens, and the disrespect that the use of those remarks show towards citizens. However, the statements and remarks were made, and given the role of chair of the downtown BIA Barrie, which is so significant and important in your city, I found that these statements breach the code. Before I have the recommendations, and I submit this for your consideration.
Thank you very much, Ms. Craig, as always. Members of council, do you have any questions of clarification for our Integrity Commissioner? Councillor Morales.
Thank you, Ms. Craig. Got a couple questions. I was taking notes here while you were speaking. The recommendation of the removal as chair by Mr. Hamilton. If your goal is if your goal is restorative, so restorative justice, healing, that's why we're publishing the letter online so people can read it, download it, share it, possibly in classrooms in their community. If that's a goal, I'm just curious, is there a reason why your report, why your office yourself didn't make a recommendation to suspend him instead as chair while he pursued the training? And have a condition of reinstatement upon successful completion of training. Because again, in my opinion, but obviously I'll hand over the question to you, in my opinion, if the goal is restorative and not just punitive or looking to see somebody penalized for destructive comments, then again, when I read the report, I would have just kind of assumed that a suspension while taking that training might have been appropriate. I'm just wondering what the reason that didn't occur might be.
So through you, Mayor Lehman, to Councillor Morales, thank you for your question. As I pointed out, when looking at penalties and remedial action, I take a lot into consideration. I thought I first took into consideration, Councillor Morales, is the weight of those words. And then in the reply of the respondent, the admission that he did not know the historical significance of those words. So let me paint a picture. You have a beautiful and significant city, which is your city of Barrie. At the center of your city, you have the downtown BIA, and at the helm of that very important BIA, you have an individual who makes statements that take a brushstroke of offense to a wide swath of your population because he didn't know what they meant. And so I did not recommend a suspension because my role is to ensure that the code of conduct, which is ensuring that members who are elected or appointed or held accountable do just that. And so what I wanted to ensure that I was doing is, you're absolutely right, not as a punitive tool, but also make the remedial action sufficient that the individual whose conduct was under investigation understood the importance and the significance of my finding, given an opportunity to step back from the very important role of leading this very significant board in the city of Barrie, take some time, as I said, not removed from the BIA, take some time as a condition to remaining on the BIA to understand what those words mean. Remember, the individual stated, I had no idea what the significance was. So here's an opportunity to learn about what the significance is. And when your own BIA board believes that you have reached a level where they can again have you as a representative of their board and the city, then they can determine if they would like to have this chair again.
Thank you, Ms. Craig. I appreciate the comments. It's obviously not an easy discussion. I think, Mayor Lehman, I guess just my closing comments on this is I'll be voting in favor to accept the report.
So
It's
do you
just
want to just hold that thought, Councillor Morales? We're going to get the motion on the floor as to how to deal with the report in a minute. We do have a little bit of process first,
for sure.
but we'll welcome your comments at that point. Are there any other questions of clarification for the Integrity Commissioner? Councillor McCann.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman, and I thank Ms. Craig for your clarification and going over your presentation. I just maybe have a question, or maybe I can get a comment from you. For those that are following along, past Mayor Hamilton has resigned completely from the BIA over, stepping your recommendations. And I just would like to know if you would like to comment on that.
Through you, Mayor Lehman, I have no comment to make on the decision of Mr. Hamilton.
Thank you, Ms. Craig.
Okay, any other questions of clarification? Councillor Morales?
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. I just thought of one here. Ms. Craig, does your office take into consideration the impact to the community that removing Mr. Hamilton as chair might have in the short, medium, and long term? And I'll clarify what I mean by that. Obviously, the impact of hurtful language, whether I didn't know any better, is an impact. So 100% your decision does take that into consideration. But you take external aspects. So for example, love him or hate him, Mr. Hamilton can pick up the phone and make networking connections that few individuals in the city can. In his role as BIA, that is especially important for business development, investment, and residential development. So while Mr. Hamilton, I'm sure, can still do that kind of phone calls if he chooses to support his community, whether he's chair or not, I get that. I just think of a very interesting example that actually came out of the mayor's office, which was when a staff member in the mayor's office was reaching out to other municipalities last year, I think, or the year earlier. They weren't getting responses back to their inquiries or follow-up. And then there was a decision to actually change the title, just the title of the employee's title, and responses started getting followed up a lot more. So I think what was realized was sometimes titles do matter, even though they shouldn't, especially when you have a pre-existing relationship. So why I'm bringing up that example, in case people are confused, is that while Mr. Hamilton might still be able to make phone calls to people he knows, having the ability to do that, as having the title behind that, could justifiably increase his ability to do work for the city, for the downtown, for the city of Barrie. So do your decisions, once you get an apology letters, once you know the impact on community, once you've gone through this process, do your decisions take into account that, if I recommend that somebody is removed from this role, they're a huge asset, and while the organization might heal better, in the long term, that organization might not be able to achieve an outcome as quickly or at all if this person is no longer in that position? Is that kind of impact calculated in your office, or is that not appropriate to take that into consideration?
Through you, Mayor Lehman, to Councillor Morales. What I can take into consideration, Councillor Morales, my role, my function as set out in the Municipal Act and the Code of Conduct, is the impact of conduct contrary to the code on the people and the residents of your city. That's considered. In addition to that, when looking at what recommended penalty or what recommended remedial action, I take into consideration what was given to me in the reply of the respondent, what I heard from it, what I saw in videos of the actual meeting. And of course, I take into consideration the actual body. And that is why, and I point you to the recommendations, there was a position. There are two penalties under the Municipal Act. There is a reprimand and a suspension of pay for up to 90 days. I took the reprimand. This is a volunteer position, and so certainly the reprimand is there, and the legend. What can we do to be able to penalize someone, not in a punitive way, but to say this is something really serious? And so that was one of my recommendations. The second recommendation, as you point out, is removal as chair. Already explained. My recommendation of remedial action is to take training to outwardly demonstrate to your city that into consideration what you said, Councillor Morales, staying on the BIA board so that he could continue to give voice to the important connections that you speak about and the experience and the years of being a business person. If the individual has chosen to step down, that is his choice. But in making my recommendations, I thought removal from chair would be something that would give him the opportunity to understand the significance but a member of the BIA. And that is why I did not make a recommendation, Councillor Morales, that he be removed entirely from the BIA so the city could continue to benefit from his years of experience.
Thank you, Ms. Craig. I did notice that Easter egg in there. At no point did you say removal from the board or a ban from seeking the chairmanship again. I did notice that Easter egg, so I appreciate those comments.
Any other questions of clarification for the Integrity Commissioner, members of council? Seeing none. I do not believe have Mr. Hamilton or a representative of his here tonight, which is not surprising given he did submit his resignation previously today. So I think at this point, we will move into a discussion of a motion with regards to the Integrity Commissioner's report. I do need council's permission to waive the rules of procedure so we can deal with that recommendation right now. Any concern with doing that, members of council? Okay, not hearing any, we'll deal with that matter now. Deputy Mayor Ward, I believe you have a motion.
I do, Mayor Lehman. Report of the Integrity Commissioner. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Rietma, that the report of the Integrity Commissioner dated April 22nd, 2021 be received. 2, that the conclusion of the Integrity Commissioner that there was a contravention of the Council and Committee Member Code of Conduct be endorsed. 3, that in light of the respondent's resignation from the Board of the Downtown Business Improvement Area, BIA, on April 26, 2021, the imposition of a penalty and any remedial action is deemed to have been addressed. I'll speak to it briefly.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion. It's moved by Deputy Mayor Ward, seconded by Councillor Rietma, that the report of the Integrity Commissioner dated April 22nd be received. 2, that the conclusion of the Integrity Commissioner that there was a contravention of the Council and Committee Member Code of Conduct be endorsed. And 3, that in light of the respondent's resignation from the Board of the Downtown Barrie BIA on today's date, the imposition of a penalty and a remedial action is deemed to have been addressed. Deputy Mayor Ward, would you care to speak to that?
Yeah, just briefly. I mean, there's a good reason we have an Integrity Commissioner. It's to take it out of council's hands if there's a possible breach of the Code of Conduct. We have somebody to investigate and make recommendations. And our job is only to accept the recommendations, reject the recommendations, or modify them. And I'm quite satisfied with them. And I think if somebody has a good reason that why they should be modified, either to make them less severe or more severe, then they can put forward those arguments. But our job is really to accept them if we believe in them. And I think that they are very good. It's a very good report and very good recommendations. And there's really nothing more we can do. Since there's been a resignation of the chair from not only from the board, or not only from the chair, but from the board, there's really not much we can do. He's now a private citizen. There's not any way we can enforce any kind of remedial action. So I will vote in favor of the recommendation.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Ward. Councillor Natalie Harris, I believe you wish to speak to this. Any others wish to speak to it? Please do indicate. Go ahead, Councillor Harris.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. And thank you, Ms. Craig, for your report and all of your work always. I definitely support all your findings. I just wanted to take a moment very quickly. I feel it's my responsibility as a member of council who is a member of the recovery community to just share a very brief statement about how this impacted myself. So on February, I think it was February 15th, 2021, this has been public for a long, long time. It's on my Twitter page. I'm just going to read it for you. I shared 2 pictures, and the first picture is of me, and I think it's in 2014. I'm not sure if you can see, but it's, I'm in, let me see here. There, you can kind of see. So that's me after one of my major overdoses, and it's pertinent for what I'm going to share. So the statement that I made on that day is, in light of the recent statements in the Barrie media about former Mayor Hamilton's comments calling people battling addiction not a productive, contributing citizen, I wanted to share a photo I found of my sickest time in 2015, just prior to me being admitted to Homewood for PTSD and addiction, and a photo of me with a Prime Minister a few short years later. So that is me with the Prime Minister. Start to see. There it is. A few short years later. I was one of the lucky ones. I had people who believed in me and helped me to find treatment. I accepted the help and life is beautiful now. It's never without its bumps in the road, but I never thought I would be able to say that I loved my life. My addiction had that much of a hold on me. I went from living in despair to living in light and love. I was very close to being a Barrie citizen living in the streets. My next drug would have been heroin. That's just the truth. I was days away from seeking it out. To anyone reading this who sees themselves in the first photo, I have faith in you. I believe in you. If you surrender and accept help and trust that the pain you must feel without drugs is part of your recovery and will get better, you are destined for greatness. You can do anything and be anything. You are productive and contributing members of society. You are just sick and need recovery in your life. Take the time you need to get well. Don't let words of negativity and ignorance force you into hiding. Every other disease is given societal permission for recovery. It's time addiction was treated the same respectful way. And thank you. That's all.
Thanks, Councillor Harris. Councillor Congo.
Thank you, Worship, and thank you, Councillor Harris. I did have a question for staff, and it was more about other questions that have come in, and I thought in relation to the motion. The relationship with City Council and the BIA is an interesting one. Based on legislation, they're their own corporation, but we do have involvement in some things. And so while I absolutely support the Integrity Commissioner's recommendations and the motion on the table, I did want to ask staff if they could, for the public, clarify those of us who have different experiences on different types of governance positions and boards may understand that when one resigns, you can re-identify interest and come back to the board. And so could staff talk about the process by which anyone from a BIA who would be elected or appointed to the board would have a relationship to City Council?
Ms. McAlpine.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor Lehman, and thank you, Councillor Kungle, for the question. When an individual resigns in writing from the board of the BIA, that position is deemed vacant. As a result, any vacancy requires council to, a person can't just rejoin the board or reassume their position. A vacancy requires that council confirm any appointments to the board. And that would be considered after the process that the BIA undertakes to fill that vacancy.
Thank you, Ms. McAlpine. I thought it was important for the public to understand that relationship, as it did have an impact on the framing of our motion.
Thanks, Councillor Kungle. Any other questions? Sorry, not questions. We're comments and debate. Councillor McCann, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. Just maybe some clarification, maybe some guidance from you, Mayor Lehman. You know, with losing the chair a year and a half into another election and less than 13 months of going to lame duck, when would it be proper to maybe discuss as council the future of the BIA? Maybe the night, or would that be a separate night?
Are you talking about the governance on the board or the whole organization?
I'm talking the whole organization. I think that this council needs to, quite frankly, have a conversation about the health of the BIA, the strength of the BIA, the weakness of the BIA, and what's best for the city. And I'm just curious if tonight's the night, or if you'd like to have an item discussion put on maybe at a later date.
Yeah, I think it would be, it wouldn't be part of this Integrity Commissioner report or motion. It should be by item for discussion. I can tell you there's been some thought and discussion around that. We have some staff there that are doing incredible work. There are mandates of the BIA that are hugely important. that we wouldn't want to see interrupted in any way, but it would be a separate matter from the receipt of this issue tonight. So I'd encourage members of council to work on a potential motion, or we can ask for a presentation from their staff or something like that. But yeah, on another night, but thanks, Councilor McCann, for that. Councillor Morales, I did say I'd come back to you, your comments. Go ahead.
Mayor Lehman. Sorry, let me check my notes here. Okay, so I asked those questions of Ms. Craig. I guess my comments really at this point are, we have to, I love the part of Ms. Craig's report about acknowledging any damage to the psyche and the people of the city, whether it be the racist comments towards Black people, people recovering from addictions, and making a big difference between people suffering from addictions and how there's, they're still humans, and suffering from addictions, recovering is a different aspect of who they are. That's important. So I'm not questioning that whatsoever. Full stop. Full stop. Now, my following comment where I'm just struggling with this is based on the comments I said about the impact that not having somebody in that role, not having somebody with that title can have on the future growth of our downtown. That's significant. That growth can be in connecting the right people to open up businesses. It can mean having residential development on lands that outside or inside investors in the city would have maybe not touched, but they got a level of confidence that years down the process results in millions and millions of dollars of development charges and taxes, which can then be used for both business purposes as well as social service purposes. So I'm just concerned, obviously not concerned about the report, but just frustrated at the situation we're in. I think the other thing that I really have to emphasize is there's not a doubt in my mind anymore. The Office of the Integrity Commissioner is being hijacked by specific people who want to bring damage to people they disagree with politically. Now, Ms. Craig still does her job, and this report still reflects that. But it's just frustrating because I've asked before to Ms. Craig, is there an ability to hold, have the same level of kind of accountability or follow up with people who aren't on committees of the city of Barrie? And what Ms. Craig has told me in the past is, unfortunately not. City councillors and members on committees are held to a higher standard. And that standard is important for them to keep. That said, I'm looking at the specific instances in this case. So the report we have in front of me, because that's what we're doing comments on. And the fact is language evolves, right? If nobody here, Mr. Hamilton, I don't believe from the report or the meeting, Councillor Jim Harris, you and I weren't at that meeting, but from the review and reading the report, at no point Mr. Hamilton tried to justify his comments other than to say, I didn't know any better, which is still not it doesn't excuse him of the comments, but it kind of gets to a point that I always say here at Council mens rea. So once those things are taken into context, I think that we just need to have a conversation about the fact that language evolves. And I look at my own personal discussions. I think even last year I said to somebody, okay, let's powwow on this idea. And I was educated that that's no longer an acceptable term. I remember 2 years ago saying the word Aboriginal. And then somebody said the new language is Indigenous, and didn't just tell me, and I didn't just go, oh, whatever. Like, they explained to me why. So I would hate to be in a situation where beyond this report, we lose members of the community that said inappropriate comments for which they took ownership. So as long as they take ownership and they seek restorative actions, that's acceptable. But because language evolves very quickly. And it is possible for everybody, I guess, to become aware and be better humans and educate themselves. But the reality is language evolves so quickly and things are socially acceptable. Sports mascots are no longer acceptable in some major franchise teams. Just today or yesterday, the New York Times announced that they're not going to say the word opt-ed because of linguistical differences. I believe in Toronto, realtors are no longer using the term master bedroom because it implies there's some dark connotations historical there. What happens if a member of council accidentally refers to a master bedroom as part of a planning committee discussion? I don't think there's any intent. What I'm getting at is language is ever evolving. So I'm happy to support this report. At the same time, I think moving forward, we need to look at people's intent when as well when reports are filed, because intent, mens rea, is just as important. And we also have to look at the reality, because unfortunately, I've seen a pattern of gotcha moments that are being brought to the Integrity Commissioner's office that are not being brought with the intent to hold people accountable, but necessarily they're being targeted. And while accountability for these comments are important, I'm just disillusioned at the negative effect it can have on our community as a whole moving forward. And again, I'm looking even at everyone's facial expressions. This is an easy discussion. This is not an easy discussion to have. Hopefully we don't have too many of these moving forward.
Councillor Rietma.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. These discussions are never easy, and I want to thank Ms. Craig for her report. I think that she has done a thorough job and a sound one. And I feel sad about it that we actually are at this place. And I also feel sad for our BIA, because they're really hardworking people, and they really care about our downtown. And so this comes as a blow to our BIA. And I certainly agree with Councillor McCann, is that we as a councillor probably need to have a good hard look at the operation to make sure that it's going in the right direction. I seconded the motion, and I believe that we really should endorse the Integrity Commissioner's report and move forward. And let's hope that we can bring some healing to the BIA. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Rietma. Councillor Kungle.
Thank you, Worship. Just a couple of comments I wanted to make, and I believe I understand the different perspectives shared around this, but I did want to just frame the commentary about, and forgive me if I'm not referencing correctly, Councillor Morales, but the reference to gotcha tactics or moments or opportunities. But I did want to make a statement of encouragement to say, the Integrity Commissioner and the process, is one that is public facing and is one that anyone can be using to hold councillor or members of committee accountable, and that if any process doesn't have merit, it does not proceed. And so I fully believe in the merit of the findings in the process, and should people choose to use the process, then I think it's great, and that should be a tool that continues to be available to them. And I don't want to undermine the importance of that being used when people do have a feeling of concern. And then the process takes care of itself. And so I did want to make reference to that, because sometimes the journey around approaching and going through a code of conduct complaint can be a foreign one, and can be one with a lot of questions, and is one where individuals might be unfamiliar. But I don't think it should be discouraged, and I do believe it's there, and I'm glad to see it being used. And so I just wanted to make that comment, because I didn't want any reference made to be taken as any reflection around it not being an appropriate tool that we should be using in any circumstance to see if it's got merit.
Thanks, Councillor Kungle. Ms. Craig.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I think what I'd like to state, first of all, is that Councillor Morales makes some very good points, and his evaluate what is going on, I think is indicative of what is happening across Ontario and beyond, where individuals' behavior tends to generally descend to a level that goes beyond the tools we have, like a code of conduct. And so to Councillor Kungle's point, right in the complaint protocol is the power of the to determine if the matter is on its face a complaint with respect to non-compliance with the code of conduct or not covered by other legend or frivolous or vexatious. So here's what you do when you get an integrity commissioner. You look at their background, you look at their experience, and you determine, is this person in a position to be able to look at a matter that comes to her and determine if it is frivolous and vexatious. That is the complaint against, to determine if it's just, you know, a complaint, or is it dissatisfaction with a particular issue? Is it because they didn't vote for that particular member of council? And so what is, you say to yourself as council, I endorse that integrity commissioner, that third party arm's length body to receive these, determine if they're on their face a complaint, and go forward. What I also look at, and I think it's important, is whether somebody has asked this question over and over, whether this person in the process of the city, whether this person is lashing out at a particular individual. And so what happens during that preliminary phase of the complaint investigation, before I even decide I'm going to look at the facts before me on their face and say, is this really a code complaint, or is someone just mad? Is someone just offended? Is someone trying to shot? That's a really difficult task. But what happens, and we can see over and over, if we do a Google search right now, and I'm sure that many of you have your devices with you, Google weaponizing code complaint investigations or weapon integrity, and it, because what people are starting to say is, why do we have an integrity commissioner? And so I give the question back to all of you, and I say, ask yourself that, because years ago, there weren't integrity commissioners. Many politicians at the federal, provincial, and municipal level just did what they did. And you had 4 years or 3 years to decide, are we okay with what they did? But at some point, the population of Canada and the province and the city of Barrie said, you know what? We want to hold you accountable. And so there was this dialogue and consultation, and there was an amendment to the Municipal Act, and 5.1 was created. Commissioners created. What we need to do is be very honest, and I welcome comments like that of Councillor Morales, but I also want us to remember who decided to bring these in. It was your residents. Residents want to hold you accountable. So if these types of complaints are more and more frequent, and if the integrity commissioner is not saying, no, not frivolous, no, not vexatious, no, this complaint, nobody agrees, this is a bona fide complaint, then maybe what we need to look at is greater training, preparing people before they run for office, preparing people before they throw their hat in to say, this is what I do. And so nobody's going to challenge you if you don't know something, but know ahead of time that you will be held accountable. And if you are held accountable, there will be repercussions. So I think Councillor Morales and all members of council, I think it's helpful to reflect on who you are, what my office or the office of the Integrity Commissioner does, and why you have it. And why people are starting to say, but that office is being weaponized. And if it's weaponized, do something about it. But what we have for the Integrity Commissioner, and if it's being weaponized, that necessarily means that the Integrity Commissioner is just receiving complaints and saying, I think I'll investigate. So if that's the Integrity Commissioner you have, you move for another.
Thank you very much, Ms. Craig, for that. There was a lot in that. The motion that is on the floor, we have had many members of council speak to it. Those who have not, Councillor Jim Harris, you're among them. Go ahead.
Great. Thank you, Mayor Lehman. I didn't think I had a question, but Ms. Craig is always compelling, and it's a chance to learn. So I do have a question, if that's okay. So through you. Yeah, I think that was a great comment, and I appreciate the comment. I'm just curious, with integrity commissioners and the complaints that come forward, I guess we wouldn't know, or do we find like how many that you do vet that say, listen, that's just unfair and it's not going forward. Do we have data reports? Is everyone that's come through got through to the point of investigation? How many didn't? How many get through and come to mediation and don't get to council? They agreed. There's an apology. Both parties accepted and moved on. Like, do we have that information as well?
That through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councilor Riepma, that is entirely my fault, because what your integrity commissioner is supposed to do is report their whereabouts every year, saying, here's how many complaints you received, these were sustained, these were dismissed, these were mediated, and I have no justification. I've had complaints. There is a way of determining what I do and how many complaints I receive and how many I dismiss. And that is in an annual report. And I have not provided you with an annual report. And so that is my error, my failing. And I take full responsibility for not having provided that to you.
Well, thank you. I didn't know we hadn't gotten one. I just thought it would be a great thing to have. So I'm glad to know maybe we'll have one. So that's great. That's a great outcome. And you know what? I blame COVID. So
well, and Councillor Harris, in Ms. Craig's defense, it used to be those reports were really short in Barrie. They're not so short anymore. And so we will be receiving one, I understand.
Yeah, and thank you. And maybe to that point, maybe it's not short because you have done exactly what Councillor Morales was speaking about, which was you have screened out ones that really shouldn't have got to the level, which was really what I was expecting, that there's been others that have come through, but you were able to screen them as being inappropriate, and I thank you for that. I just, maybe one other comment, and it more relates to the BAA, and I know Councillor McCann raised a comment about the BAA and its functioning, and then, listen, I'm one of the newer members of the BAA and been on there, I think, less than a year. It feels like forever. But I will say that let's be honest about where this BAA has come from in this term of council. I think we might have set a record for BAAs in Ontario, if not Canada, for resignations. And we can all wonder about why that is. But I think we might be up to 9 resignations in less than 2.5 years. So does that require some sort of investigation, consideration, evaluation? I would think so, because despite everything that's happened, now this resignation I completely understand, and I fully support Ms. Craig's report. So happy to accept that resignation. But notwithstanding, there's been many others this year in this term. And so I just need to say that. And I also want to thank Councillor Harris. As always, she brings her perspective, which is incredibly important, having someone who has the both experience and courage to speak about her issue and experience with substance misuse and the challenges associated. But for all those who are out there and they're struggling, and I know this is, when we hear things from other people, we interpret those as we do. I just want to read a quote. Your worst enemy cannot harm you as much as your own thoughts. Unguarded, but once mastered, no one can help you as much, not even your mother or father. And that's from the Buddha. So I just want to say that, it's your internal control, what you say to yourself in your own thoughts, in your own mind is most important. Other voices, harmful, absolutely. But please know you have the control within yourself to believe what you want to believe. So thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Harris. Wise words from the Buddha for sure. I mean, this is obviously a much larger issue. We are touching on several different, much larger issues tonight here, members of council. The role of the Integrity Commissioner and its the growing number of complaints and the process, which I think are legit questions to be discussing, especially around the resolution of a complaint here. The broader issues around the governance of the BIA, and certainly that has been disastrous over the last couple of years. It's been very, very difficult. And that is a separate issue, though, that's not on the table at the moment, but certainly one that I expect many members of council may have feelings about and that we need to deal with going forward. The other issue I think that is being rightly raised here is, the treatment of those in our community with addictions. And that is certainly something that has occupied rightly the forefront of council's discussions on many occasions and will again very shortly, given the projects and the issues that are in front of us before the summer break. But for now, we are on the motion to moved by Deputy Mayor Ward and seconded by Councillor Riepma with regards to the outcome of the Integrity Commissioner's report on this matter. All but, I believe, 2 or 3 members of council have spoken to it. Do any of those who haven't spoken wish to speak to it? We are at council, so you may only speak once to the motions that are on the floor. Okay, then the only other comments I wanted, sorry, Councillor Morales, do you have a point of order or clarification? You did already speak.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. It wasn't a point of order clarification. I thought
okay, then you've already spoken.
I thought you were just going to let people who haven't spoken speak, and if that wasn't the case, anybody else who already has spoken.
No, you can only speak once at council.
Okay.
Councillor McCann, I think you already spoke as well. Did you have a point of clarification or a point of order? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. I'll really will be brief. Councillor Jim Harris brought up a question to Ms. Craig about all of the.
Sorry, Councillor McCann, you did already speak to this. Did you have a point of order?
Clarification.
Sorry, I did say clarification, and that was my misspeaking. We're at council. Members can only speak once to a motion. Was there a point of order that you wish to raise?
There was a clarification.
I'm sorry, we don't do clarification isn't a justification to speak again to a motion. If you have a question of process or a point of order, I can take that. Other than that, I need to stick to the rules here, everyone, because we have got ourselves most into trouble when we don't follow the rules of procedure, which are laid out in our bylaw.
Point of order, Mayor Lehman.
Sorry, Councillor McCann still got the floor. Did you have a point of order, Councillor McCann?
Sorry, Mayor Lehman. I had clarification.
Sorry, is it an issue of process, Councillor McCann?
Mayor Lehman, move on, please. I have a clarification. So you're not allowing clarification. So
no,
I'm done speaking. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Morales, point of order.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. My point of order, I should have rephrased it earlier. My point of order was follow up because Councillor Kungol's comments did address me directly, and I know in the past you've allowed a councillor to do a follow up if they're addressed directly, especially since her comments. It was more of a question. She didn't accuse me, but she was just concerned or brought up the fact in case my comments were discouraging people from using the office. So I think it would be fair to have a follow up. I know there's been a couple.
Yeah, I understand you feel the way, Councillor Morales. However, though, that will end up in a back and forth again. And I've been asked by all of you to be stricter about our rules of procedure. So here I am. We've all had a chance to speak to it. Though I've called for those who haven't had a chance to speak to it. So at this point, I'm just going to make a couple of remarks and call the question on the floor. The remarks I wanted to make, I want to be quite clear. Because I think there were some very important issues and good questions raised by members of council to the Integrity Commissioner Better process. I thought Ms. Craig's answer is very important on the matter of the intent of a complaint. What she said is, I filter for vexatious complaints, for people who I believe are misusing the Integrity Commissioner process to bring forward matters which are not valid code of conduct complaints. But I want to really reiterate a message that's important here, I think, tonight, which is this was a valid, very valid code of conduct complaint. This was a very well-written report on a complaint that was upheld by the Integrity Commissioner. And I want to thank Ms. Craig, as always, for writing a very thorough report, which not only addressed this is what was said, this is why it was wrong, but provided the context. And the context, I hope everybody reads this report. And I'm really pleased to see a motion on the floor, which is endorsing it, notwithstanding Mr. Hamilton has chosen to resign. And that is that the context that Ms. Craig has provided in her report is very, very relevant right now, especially in our community. And I don't want it to get lost in our discussion of process that this complaint was found to be justified, regardless of the intent of whoever filed it. The fact of the matter is laid out in the report, and Ms. Craig provided a great deal of detail as to why it was wrong to say those things. And I think the broader context into which this issue is sort of landing is also extremely timely, because we are going to have choices on the matter of how we treat individuals in our community with addictions and mental health challenges in the coming months. So I appreciate that, but at the core of it, I'll say what I always seem to say when we have an integrity commissioner's report, which is the reason we have one is because it is not the position of any member of council to judge, in this case, a member of an outside board. We've had the very tough circumstance of receiving the recommendation of the integrity commissioner when it related to one of our own members' behavior. This is a member of an outside board, but they are still afforded the same independent officer appointed by council. And we are very fortunate to have an extremely learned one who continues to provide the judgment and context around her decisions. And I really appreciate, again, as I've said before, and believe that it is the role of council to uphold the findings of the integrity commissioner. So notwithstanding, it's not an issue tonight of the imposition of the penalty or the remedial actions. Paragraph 2 is really important to me, that council endorse her findings and that we thank her for her work. So with that, I'm going to call the question on the motion that's on the floor. Are we all prepared for the question? We're aware of what the motion is. Okay. Those in favor of the motion, please indicate. I am as well, and that makes it unanimous by all members of council. Thank you. That concludes the Integrity Commissioner's matter for tonight. And Ms. Craig, thank you again for being here and answering the questions of Barrie City Council.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, council.
We will move on now to tax applications, which feels like a much more pedestrian matter after the previous ones. Deputy Mayor Ward, do you have a motion on tax applications?
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thompson. The list of applications for cancellation, reduction, or additions to taxes to council dated April 26, 2021, submitted by the Treasurer in the amount of $12,778.29 be approved.
Thank you. It's moved by Deputy Mayor Ward, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that the list of applications for cancellation, reduction, or addition to taxes to council dated April 26th, 2021, submitted by the Treasurer in the amount of $12,778.29 be approved. Now, this being a matter of public comment, should we be in the council chambers, I need to ask on the Zoom call, Madam Deputy Clerk, have we received any objections to this list of application for cancellation, reduction, or additions of taxes?
We have not, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. Are there any comments from members of council tonight? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Those in favor? Are any opposed? None. I am as well. That makes it unanimous. We have no communications matters on tonight's agenda. It brings us to the committee reports. Deputy Mayor Ward, let's start.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that the section A of the general committee report dated April 19th, 2021 is circulated to be received.
Thank you. It's moved by Deputy Mayor Ward, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that section A of the general committee report dated April 19th, 2021 is circulated to be received. It's the report of the City Building Committee dated April 13th. This is the consent items from City Building Committee. Comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, those in favor, please indicate. Any opposed to section A? None, that carries. Section B, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that section A of the general committee report dated April 19th, 2021 is circulated to be adopted.
Yeah, me too.
I know, I just noticed it.
I think those are out of order.
Well,
no, I think that should be B. That should be B, Deputy Mayor Ward. It's,
Okay.
we're now moving on to the general,
Yep,
sorry,
it is
the
general- it
first
is-
section
it's
was to receive the city
labeled here,
building
yes.
committee report. Yeah, it's just mislabeled. So it's section B. Okay, it's moved by Deputy Mayor Ward, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that section B of the general committee report dated April 19th, 2021, as circulated, be adopted. These are the consent items from the general committee agenda that night. Comments or questions on section B of the general committee report? Okay, seeing none. Those in favor, please indicate. Any opposed to section B? None. That's carried. Section C, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that section C of the general committee report dated April 19, 2021 is circulated be adopted.
Thank you. It's moved by Deputy Mayor Ward, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that section C of the general committee report dated April 19th, 2021 as circulated be adopted. It's with regards to investigating lowering speed limits across the city. The revised motion is included in section C. Comments or questions? Councillor Harvey, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have an amendment. It's moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Natalie Harris that motion 21G-094 of section C of the General Committee report dated April 19th, 2021 be amended by deleting paragraph 2 and replace it with the following. 2, that staff and Access Barrie create an online survey to poll residents on road safety and speed changes in the city of Barrie to solicit feedback from residents as to whether they're in favor of a citywide reduction or solely a reduction in residential areas, along with any further questions, including specific streets of concern with respect to road safety and speeding that staff believe are beneficial with to assist with staff report on this matter. And that's in regards to item for discussion 8.4 from March 29th, 2021.
Okay, we have an amendment. It's moved by Councillor Gary Harvey, seconded by Councillor Natalie Harris, that motion 21G94 of section C be amended by deleting paragraph 2 and replacing it with the following. 2, that staff and Access Barrie create an online survey to poll residents on road safety and speed changes in the city of Barrie, to solicit feedback from residents as to whether they are in favor of a citywide reduction or solely a reduction in residential areas, along with any further questions, including specific streets of concern with respect to road safety and speeding that staff believe are beneficial to assist with the staff report on this matter. Okay, Councillor Gary Harvey, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Even though that was pretty long-winded, it's replacing the whole paragraph. But the matter of fact is it's actually only 2 pieces of it where we're adding some additional wording. And that's after further discussion and consultation with staff earlier today and through the week that they had recommended just changing the language ever so slightly to what this amendment is.
Okay, and maybe just to highlight the change, Councillor Harvey, did you want to do that?
Sure.
I'm just pulling up the original text and doing the side-by-side here. Go ahead.
Yeah, so in the very first paragraph, to poll residents, we then added the words on road safety and speed changes. And then at the very end, after the word along with any further questions, the words including specific streets of concern with respect to road safety and speeding was added.
Good. Okay. Thanks for that, Councillor Harvey. Any others who wish to speak to this amendment that is on the floor? Okay, seeing none, I'll call the question on the amendment. Those in favor, please indicate. Is anyone opposed? None. That carries. Thanks for the amendment. On the main motion as amended, section C. Any further comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Those in favor of section C as amended. Any opposed? None. That carries. Thank you. Section D, please, Deputy Mayor Ward.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that section D of the General Committee report dated April 19, 2021 circulated be adopted.
Thank you. It's moved by Deputy Mayor Ward, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that Section D of the General Committee Report dated April 19th, 2021, as circulated, be adopted. This is with regards to updates of the city's workplace policies and actions undertaken related to a workplace investigation. Comments or questions on Section D? Okay, seeing none, I'll call the question. Those in favor of Section D? Any opposed? None. That carries unanimously. Section E, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that Section E of the General Committee Report dated April 19th, 2021 is circulated be adopted.
Thank you. It's moved by Deputy Mayor Ward, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that Section E of the General Committee Report dated April 19th, 2021, as circulated, be adopted. This is with regards to the employment lands strategy and considerations. Are there any comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, I will call the question. Those in favor of Section E? Any opposed? None. That carries. With thanks to staff for answering some questions today on a few related matters. I know there were a number. Section F, please, Deputy Mayor Ward.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that Section F of the General Committee Report dated April 18th, 2021 is circulated be adopted.
Thank you. It's moved by Deputy Mayor Ward, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that Section F of the General Committee Report dated April 19th, 2021 as circulated be adopted. This is with regards to the 2021 tax ratios and capping policies. Comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, those in favor of Section F, please indicate. None are opposed. That carries unanimously as well. Section G, please, Deputy Mayor Ward.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that Section G of the General Committee Report dated April 19th as circulated be adopted.
Okay, it's moved by Deputy Mayor Ward, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that Section G of the General Committee Report dated April 19th, 2021 as circulated be adopted. This is with regards to the National 3-Digit Suicide and Crisis Hotline. Comments or questions? Seeing none, call the question. Those in favor? Anyone opposed? None. That carries unanimously as well. Thank you. Section H, please. Thank you, Councillor Harris.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that Section H of the General Committee Report dated April 19th, 2021 is circulated be adopted.
It's moved by Deputy Mayor Ward, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that Section H of the General Committee Report dated April 19th, 2021 as circulated be adopted. This is with regards to the installation of stop signs at Sproul and Miller and Dock Road and Coxmill Road. Comments or questions on Section H? Okay, I will call the question. Those in favor of Section H, please indicate. Okay, that carries unanimously. Thank you. Unopposed. Section I, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that Section I of the General Committee Report dated April 19th, 2021 is circulated be received.
It's moved by Deputy Mayor Ward, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that Section I of the General Committee Report dated April 19th, 2021 is circulated be received. This is to receive the item that was lost at General Committee last week, so it's just to be received on the procedure for motions amendments in excess of $30,000. Comments or questions? Okay, Councillor McCann, go ahead.
So just a little clarification, Mayor Lehman, this is going to be voted on tonight, and if it's lost, it's lost, or is it coming back to council next week?
No, this is the council vote. So the General Committee vote was the item was lost. So at this point, we simply receive it because it has to be on the agenda, but it will be ratifying that we're not going to do it.
Yeah, so I would like to speak to it and see if I can't change council members' minds.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. I appreciate council maybe giving me a few minutes to maybe just go over why I feel strongly about capping the ask from this committee anytime past 5 o'clock on a Friday. I mean, there's been three very clear examples in the past, I believe, 12 months that this would have actually caused a lot less stress on council, confusion with residents, and better governance with this council and with city staff. And I think that Shack World, I think that the Vesper Street, and I think that the $800,000, tax grant are three real good examples where if we actually had maybe a day or two to actually process, go over, consult who we need to consult with, look what other cities have done, consult with city staff, instead of having it come at the last minute. I just think this is good governance. And all I'm asking for is, Friday at 5 o'clock compared to Monday at 5 o'clock. And I understand that this was unanimous vote last week. I wasn't voting last week. And I would just like you to ask you to reconsider for those reasons. That I just think it's good governance. And I just think that as we're going to approaching an election year, I just think that council members in general, not just Barrie, throughout the world, it gets a little more confusing and a little more intense. And to maybe manage that intensity and maybe manage that passion for all council to be able to process and ask over $30,000 with the exception of budget and exception of obviously when the mayor were in extreme measures like the pandemic. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor McCann, did you want to move an amendment? The items at council to be received.
So you can maybe help me out, Mary Liebman, with a little administration. So move an amendment to move this forward. Can you give me the wording, please?
You would need a written amendment with a seconder to do something different than what's on the agenda.
Okay. So thank you, Councillor Harvey.
Councillor Harvey?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. I would be in favor of seconding an amendment. I think Councillor McCann's theme behind this has some meat behind it, but I guess we have to watch how we would word this, because like even last week, for instance, at General Committee, when we were speaking about the employment lands, an amendment came forward in relation to that. And with the current wording, that would totally negate the ability to be able to do things like that. So I think something as simple as possibly adding some wording that it would also exclude items that are already on the agenda. Because I truly believe that Councillor McCann's flavor behind this is to stop the last minute requests that are not on our agenda, and we do at times kind of have to go on the fly because we're totally caught off guard without potentially having the amount of information that we would like to have to be able to make sound decisions. So if even adding those few words to that current thing, I personally believe would accomplish what Councillor McCann's trying to accomplish here.
Okay, I'd welcome an amendment if somebody wishes to move an item. I guess I would say, Councillor Harvey, you're right. Last week, I think, with the excellent example of trying to actually make more industrial land available, we moved an amendment that would have been offside with this had we passed it. So it obviously needed work, and that was why council unanimously chose to turn it down last week. I spoke in favor of the core principle of it when it first came forward, and I continue to believe it would be good governance under some circumstances, but it just hasn't been prepared to be workable at council. So I guess rather than, because I don't believe there's been an amendment prepared for tonight, what I would encourage is that I don't believe it would be offside for a related item to come forward. If you brought the same matter forward, you'd need to be asking council to reconsider, which is complicated procedurally. But with the benefit of a little more time and better preparation, perhaps there's an item here that could be seen to be workable by council. So that could be brought forward as an item for discussion, as this one was at a future date if it was so prepared. This doesn't need to be sent back to do that, I guess, is my point. So the item is currently on the floor as printed, which would be to receive and take no further action on it. Councillor McCann, though, you'd indicated you might want to prepare an amendment.
Yeah, I do want to prepare an amendment, but my colleague, Councillor Robert Thompson, put his hand up. I'm not sure if he has something to add that would be helpful.
Okay, we will need a written amendment with a seconder if we want to deal with it at the moment. Councillor Thompson, go ahead.
Through you, Mayor Lehman, if I could, because I can only speak to the matter once, I'll wait to see the amendment and then I'll save my time for that, please.
If there is an amendment, you can speak to the amendment that is moved separately from the main motion. Councillor McCann?
So can we take a 2-minute recess just so I can write this amendment?
Sure. We will take a 3-minute recess.
And who will I be writing this amendment to, as our clerk is not here tonight?
The deputy clerk is here tonight.
Okay.
Councillor Aylwin, before we take that 3-minute recess.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. Can I make a suggestion that it be a referral motion to Finance and Corporate Services?
Yeah, that would be
just for
much
simplicity's
quicker.
sake.
Yeah, would be a lot quicker for sure. Thank you. Councillor McCann, I think you heard the suggestion. Go ahead and I will take a 3-minute recess. We're at 8:54. So at 8:57, please don't go anywhere, folks. We'll just give Councillor McCann time to prepare his written amendment. Okay?
Point of clarity.
3-minute recess. Sorry, Councillor Thompson, yes?
Sorry, point of clarity. Do we not need to vote on the referral motion from Councillor Elwin?
He wasn't moving it. He was suggesting to Councillor McCann that he might prepare that.
Sorry.
We're at council. We need written amendments. These should be prepared ahead of the meeting. It's kind of ironic that this is an item about preparing ahead of time. But anyway, I'm going to take the 3-minute recess. It's 8:55. At 8:58, I'm going to reconvene City Council and an amendment can be put on the floor. Okay? It's a 3-minute recess starting right now. Thanks. Okay, can I get everybody back into the call, please? Second call, can I get everybody back into the call? I'm going to call City Council back to order. Okay, it's 9:01. We're 3 minutes past. I'm going to call the City Council meeting back to order. Section I of the General Committee report is on the floor. Councilor McCann, did you have an amendment?
I do, Mayor Lehman. I'm just looking for a little more lenience on the wording here.
Okay, the item does have to be referred back to be worked on. It's the motion that's on the floor is simply to receive it. Councillor Thompson, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. Through you to the Deputy Clerk, I sent an email. I've written a referral motion, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Jim Harris, to refer this back to Finance and Corporate Services. And I can speak to that.
And you wish to move that? Okay, so it's moved by Councillor Thompson and seconded by Councillor Jim Harris that motion 21G100 be referred to Finance and Corporate Services Committee for further consideration. Go ahead, Councillor Thompson.
I'll be very quick, Mayor Lehman. I think the comments around this.
I'm sorry, my apologies. That's a referral motion, is it not? It is, and that makes it non-debatable.
Point of order, Mayor Lehman.
Point of order, Councillor Morales.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. I think I'm going to regret this, but for the fairness of procedure, if we are clearly aware that there is a possible motion coming, I think it would be fair for that one to go first, then for a referral motion. Otherwise, we're literally shutting down debate.
Yeah, but to be clear, Councillor Morales, the original motion can't be debated. It was deferred. It was defeated by General Committee. We can't debate a motion on, you know, what's the amount or what's the time or any of the content of the motion, because the item that's on the floor has to be referred back to be debated. It's not the original item is not on the floor. So, Madam Clerk, or Ms. McAlpine's on the call. Go ahead, Ms. McAlpine. Could you maybe just clarify the procedure at this point?
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. As you've noted, a motion that has lost is only being received. It's like an action that has taken place. In order to take any action with respect to this matter, the motion needs to be referred to either staff or a committee, and then wording can be placed on the floor. Or as an alternative, the motion to receive can be carried, and an item for discussion on something different could be placed on a future General Committee agenda, but you can't action something that has lost at General Committee and is only for receipt. There's no adoption being considered this evening, given last week's loss at General Committee.
So is the procedure clear, Councilor Morales?
Thanks, Mayor Lehman. Well, let me ask one follow-up on procedure. In the past, when items have failed, councillors have moved amendments to essentially change the outcome. I can think of planning applications or different items. Can't somebody theoretically move an amendment to essentially undo the defeating of the previous week without? It's not introducing a new motion. It's just saying that section, et cetera, be amended by saying that, the action does happen with possibly more description on how it should be. I'm wondering if this is just different than in the past when I've seen amendments come at City Council.
It's rare for an item to be defeated at general committee and then received, but that's indeed what happened unanimously last week. That means the item's not on the floor tonight. The only thing that's on the floor tonight is to receive council's action and confirm it. Councillor McCann, or in this case, Councillor Thompson, and now seconded by Councillor Harris, would like to reconsider the decision to defeat it. And the proper way to do that is to refer the matter back either to a working reference committee or general committee, or you could do what I had suggested before the break, which is receive this, accept that it's not going to pass, and then bring something forward that has a little more depth or thought at a future meeting. Either way, I think the same thing will happen, which is there will be another kick at this can. But you can't amend the original item because it was defeated. It is not on the floor. Yeah. So with that point of order clarified, the only action that council can take right now is to refer the item back or receive it and essentially defeat it. So we have a referral motion. It's been duly moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Jim Harris, to refer this item to Finance and Corporate Services Committee. Councillor McCann? You can't debate it because it's a referral motion, but point of order, go ahead. Did you have a point of order? Sorry, you're on mute, Councillor McCann.
No, thank you, Mayor Lehman. I'll be supporting Councillor Thompson's referral.
The referral. Okay. The referral motion is on the floor. I will call the question on it. Those in favor of sending this to Finance and Corporate Services? Opposed? Councillor Morales? That carries. So section I is referred. Yes, Councillor McCann?
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. And will this be referred back to the next finance meeting?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Section J, members of General Committee.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that Section J of the General Committee report dated April 19th, 2021 is circulated to be received.
Thank you. It's moved by Deputy Mayor Ward, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that Section J of the General Committee report dated April 19th, 2021 is circulated be received. It's to receive a confidential personal information matter regarding the appointment to the Heritage Barrie Committee. Comments or questions? Seeing none, those in favor, please indicate. Any opposed? None. Carries. Section K, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that Section K of the General Committee report dated April 19th, 2021 is circulated to be adopted.
Thank you. It's moved by Deputy Mayor Ward, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that Section K of the General Committee report dated April 19th, 2021 is circulated be adopted. This is with regards to the appointment to the Heritage Barrie Committee. Comments or questions? Seeing none, those in favor? Is anyone opposed? None. That carries unanimously as well. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Ward. That completes the committee reports, which brings us at long last to the presentation. And the presentation we have on tonight's agenda is by Living Green Barrie concerning the top 10 actions for climate. I'd like to call on Andy Pilon, Project Director for Living Green Barrie, to provide the presentation. Andy, welcome to Barrie City Council. And the floor is yours.
Thank you. Is my presentation up?
Not yet.
Okay. So I'm requesting to share. Share screen. Okay. Okay.
There we go.
Okay. So I'm hoping that you're seeing a screen saying 10 actions for climate.
That is what we see. Go ahead.
Thank you. Greetings, Mayor Lehman and Council, and thank you for the opportunity to tell you a little bit more about Living Green Barrie. We are Barrie's only registered environmental charity, and this year we turned 30. Over this past 30 years, Living Green has been Barrie's go-to organization for innovative green projects. Did you know that we started the city's Spring into Clean initiative and installed the first community garden? Some might remember our alternative recycling depot, where volunteers sorted plastic for recycling long before the city started taking them in the blue box. We partnered with the city to deliver the EnerGuide program and did energy and water conservation retrofits, installing over 10,000 low-flow toilets, low-flow shower heads, and taps. At 3 different periods of time, we occupied physical locations. For a while, we had an environmental action center. We ran an EnviroMart downtown and ran Off the Rack, which worked to keep textiles out of the landfill. Currently, we're run by 2 part-time staff and a board of directors with expertise in green energy, forest therapy, law, arboriculture, and sustainable investing, just to name a few. Oh, this is running smoothly for me here. All of these initiatives were dependent on grants, fundraising, sponsors, and partnerships with the city. Often when the grants ran out, staff were let go, leases ended, and the volunteer board of directors remained to reinvent the organization time and time again. Right now, we have 2 dedicated program sponsors, Raymond James and Delta Bingo. We run various fundraising campaigns, including a rain barrel fundraiser that goes to the end of this month, and have an ongoing campaign called 10,000 Trees for Barrie. We're committed to planting trees in Barrie. Because of COVID restrictions, it appears our events are canceled for this spring. It looks like the trees are going to be planted by LSRCA and Living Green staff instead. It's a real shame because there are a ton of volunteers who would love to plant trees right now. We've also been running the Fruit Share program, which was connecting homeowners who have fruit trees up with volunteer fruit pickers who would pick the excess fruit to share with a social service organization like the food bank. The program also includes planting food forests on publicly accessible sites, including city parks. Unfortunately, due to our funding shortfall, Fruit Share is on hiatus for now. Our green screen program started with us showing environmental documentaries at the Downtown Theatre. It is since morphed into monthly events like workshops, guided theme hikes, engaging speakers, and thanks to COVID, a lot of online webinars. We are very active on social media and have a quarterly newsletter and regularly release content to local media. We also offer the expertise of our board of directors to answer people's burning environmental questions. Our strategic plan focuses on our activities on improving environmental literacy and turning that into action and small changes to the way we live. This is why we focused our attention on individual actions for climate change. We suggest that behavior changes in a society don't happen overnight. Messaging needs to be short, clear, targeted, and repeated. Our plan is to assign each of these actions to a month of the year, then focus events and messaging within that month. Learn what worked and what didn't, adjust and repeat the following year. Climate change is a huge problem, so huge it can be overwhelming. This can lead to inaction. It's like a very messy room. It's hard to know where to even begin, so you just shut the door instead. But when you're finally ready to start, you just need to pick one shelf at a time, sort it, and move on to the next. This is why our first action is simply just to be hopeful. This message is particularly important when speaking to the younger generations. It's hard to stay positive when the state of the world has never seemed so bleak. The news is filled with reports of wildfires, melting glaciers, floods, droughts, and evidence that even this global pandemic is linked to climate change. 2020 was the hottest year on record. But there's reason for hope. 8 of the 10 largest economies have pledged net zero by 2050. The cost of solar and wind power has plummeted by 90% in the past decade. Most climate scientists agree that we have not yet reached the point of no return. Soon, but not yet. So how do we fight against apathy or despair? Through hope and action. Even a minor change in what you buy, eat, or do on a daily basis adds to the collective result. Do not underestimate the impact that leading by example has on your friends and family. In February, Living Green partnered with the Simcoe County District School Board to show a hopeful movie to their students. This optimistic movie imagined what it could be like in 20 years if we embraced all the technologies that exist today. Our second action asked people to think about where their money is invested. The global push for cleaner, healthier energy is on. Fortunately, with costs dropping every day, renewable energy is the best choice for the environment and for the economy. In March, we held a free webinar on green investing, which we'll be posting to our website later this week. This month, in conjunction with Earth Day, we asked people to go low waste, to really think about taking full ownership of all the things we let into our lives. For example, one easy thing that people can do to reduce emissions is to reduce food waste and compost more. We want people to join the free cycling movement that social media is allowing us to do. We want people to be offended at the amount of non-recyclable plastic we let into our houses, and we want people to think about the other R's like refuse and repurpose. For example, the rain barrels that Living Green's selling through our fundraiser are repurposed food barrels, so no new plastic is created. In May, we plant trees. In normal years, our community tree planting events bring out between 100 and 200 good folks to plant trees. It's one of the most hopeful actions we can get people to do to really feel that they can make a difference. But we want to do more in the coming years. We want to introduce a neighborhood tree steward program where small planting areas across all 10 wards get planted through a direct invitation from the councillors to the adjacent neighbors, then who become the long-term stewards of those trees. They not only plant them, but they water them regularly, mulch them, and care for the trees until they reach maturity. In June, we want people to engage in civil discussion and make sure that all levels of government are hearing their voices. Living Green isn't a political organization, but we tip our hat and lend our support to all the groups who are screaming, we need action on climate change and we need it now. We want an urgent yet civil discussion about what we're all going to do in our roles as leaders, as activists, and as citizens. Next, we turn our thoughts to how we move around in our environment. We ask people to tread lightly. You know that the largest emitter of greenhouse gases in Barrie is private vehicle use. If COVID allows, this July, Living Green would like to do an outdoor event in partnership with the Electric Vehicle Society. This group of EV advocates will put out a call to their local members who own EVs of all makes and models. People like myself who've already been thinking that my next vehicle is going to be electric can come out and meet the EV owners who can show and talk about their car without any kind of sales pitch because they are owners, not sellers. Then in the heat of August, we asked people to think about being energy efficient and to power down. There are hundreds of different ways to upgrade your homes, from better insulation, switching your furnace, converting to solar, purchasing better appliances and fixtures and windows, if you've got the money. But there's lots of non-monetary behavior-based actions to tackle here, from unplugging, switching off, programming your household temperature, adjusting power settings on monitors, sealing drafts, or just simply air drying your laundry, just to name a few. In September, when our local gardens are brimming with in-season food, we turn our attention to what we eat. We want people to eat more local and include more plant-based meals. Oversimplified explanation, cattle emit methane, a particularly potent greenhouse gas. They also take up a lot more land than plants, making them a very inefficient food source. Fortunately, many local restaurants are already providing amazing options for plant-based eating. It's a much easier and tastier thing to do now than it's ever been. For this month's event, Living Green will once again partner with our friends at Urban Pantry and hope to run a pared down version of our Fruit Share program. Then in October, we plant more trees. It's such an important action, it's on here twice. We will hopefully be able to have our Halloween themed community tree planting event by this time. We would also like to advance the building of a residential tree planting program if we can find the resources to do so. Private property makes up significantly more land in Barrie than publicly held lands, and a mature, healthy tree on private property benefits us all. We want to build a program that helps people to plant the right tree, i.e. native species, in the right way, in the right location. For example, a deciduous or leafy tree planted on the west and southwest side of a house will provide shade in the summer during full leaf out, but will allow for full sun in the winter when you want to warm your house. Our final actions simply ask people to buy less stuff. In particular, buy less plastics and low quality disposable stuff. This doesn't have to hurt our local economy either. Living Green will be holding a webinar on Black Friday called Green Friday. We will talk about the ways people can green their holidays, provide gift ideas that don't wreck the planet, and will feature local businesses that are offering experiences and green products that promote a circular economy. The City of Barrie can choose to partner with Living Green to adopt this strategy in full or in part. You have resources that we don't have. We will continue to plug along with our underfunded volunteer efforts, looking for creative ways to keep the lights on for another 30 years. It's my hope that you're left today with a good impression of Living Green being another resource available to you for engaging the citizens of Barrie in our collective fight against climate change. We would love to partner with the city on more initiatives. Our challenge is to build our capacity as an organization while serving Barrie's green community and our growing volunteer network who are looking for more opportunities to help. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much, Andy, for that presentation and all of the activities and great sort of innovative approaches that the organization takes to individual action. I mean, one of the biggest challenges often you know, talking to a broader audience about climate change is, well, what can I do individually? And you know, there are certain obvious and often repeated things about transportation choices and so forth, but it is of course much broader than that. And some of the examples that you gave us tonight, I think, are things that, you know, really should get repeated around and carried as broader ideas. Questions from members of council for Ms. Palin? Councillor McCann.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman, and thank you very much for your presentation, Andy. And I won't ask if you have any stories about Porter Bernstein. You know, I'm a big fan of him, and he's a great passion for the environment. And I saw him in a few pictures. I just want to ask you in the budget, federal budget that happened a week ago. What are your thoughts on the federal government's activities, and how can we integrate those maybe as a household or as a municipality?
Well, it's great that finally I feel like climate change is something we've been shouting about forever, but it's now finally starting to get the attention that we need and starting to get some real dollars associated with it. So I think I'm excited to see things roll out and see some of those dollars trickle down to municipalities, hopefully, to start to do some of these things. What I'm really interested in is really where climate change hits the household level, because I feel like we often keep talking about, oh, it's the government needs to do this and this group needs to do this, and you know, and what I think really, if we're going to make any gains, it has to be an all of us problem. And that's really where Living Green wants to really associate ourselves with, like, those local actions and making sure that this is something that people don't feel like it's beyond them, nor that it's not their problem.
Thank you for that. No, I was more concerned about the $4 billion that the federal government has put towards, you know, sustainable, you know, renewable energies, you know, the environment as a whole. And you know what? Maybe I'm taking you off guard. I'm not here to put you on the spot. So maybe I'll just move on from that question and just thank you for your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to say that one of the things I really want to offer is that if any of the counselors would like to have some one-on-one discussions about any of the things I've put forward here, I'd also like to offer that out. I know that there are several counselors here that I've spoken to, and then there's some that are strangers to me, and I'd like to change that. So maybe we can have some more discussions at a different time about any of these things.
Thanks for that. Councillor Kungle.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Ms. Pellin. Some questions maybe bridging from a funding. So as a 30-year-old community not-for-profit that's got an incredible mandate and has been supporting us and is very tightly aligned to a lot of our strategies and city program and services. And while we talk about COVID and those impacts, particularly on our charities and on some of our smaller agencies and businesses, and we've looked at different grant opportunities, be it federal, provincial, local, how has Living Green fit into that? Because I feel like I don't appreciate when we talk about arts and culture, would an organization such as Living Green find themselves within that? Or is there a gap in access to grants from a mechanism to support sustainability?
So if one of the things I was hoping in that 10 minutes to sort of characterize in the 30 years that this organization's been around is the boom and bust kind of cycle that you get with a lot of not-for-profits. And this one in particular, I mean, there was times when I said that we were running that EnerGuide program, and installed 10,000 low-flow toilets and had that Be Green Barrie program. There was 12 staff, an office. They, as Peter Burston says, we had a fax machine. Again, it was the 90s, and that was a big deal to him. But we, and then when the grant ran out, done. The whole thing, staff were let go, everything was gone, and then went back down to zero. Then the next grant came along, and things ramped up, and you started to get some traction, and then that grant was done, and we were back down to zero. And so I think this is what I'm trying to do right now, is to know that this organization could be a huge resource to the city of Barrie. It has longevity, it has name brand recognition, it is a registered charity already. It has a board of directors with some incredible experience and could answer any of those questions probably way better than me. Is just sort of ripe for the picking to use as a resource for climate, to help with the city's climate change adaptation strategy. Unfortunately, again, if I start to write grant applications, what I'll get is probably a project. It'll have a project, it'll have a start date, and it'll have an end date. And then at that point, we're back to zero. So what I'd really like to do is build this organization, the capacity of this organization, so we can actually build traction and actually do some real changes here in the city of Barrie. And again, I would need some help from the city, but more than that, I think that we can actually help you. You guys could help us, and it would be a win-win situation. So really today, what I was hoping to do is sort of reintroduce our organization to those who may have heard of us, didn't really know about, and again, offer to have some greater dialogue on how you guys can help us to help you.
Fantastic. And if I may, a redirect question to staff, to yourself, Your Worship, or a member of staff. I'd love to see the conversation continue. I look at the 10 actions for climate change and think, wouldn't that be a beautiful integration on our web assets? Wouldn't that be a beautiful piece to embed in our calendar that every resident would get that align to initiatives in our circular economy? And so from a next step around bridging Andy and her team in Living Green with a staff conversation, I'm assuming it might be tabling a motion at General Committee next week for staff to investigate or engage Andy, or is there something directional that could be supported leaving here tonight?
Correct me if I'm wrong. Oh, we're at City Council. No, unfortunately, yeah, you're going to have to do it separately by motion. I was going to say you could refer the presentation, but we're at Council tonight. So yes, why don't you bring a motion, Councillor Kungle? I think if I might on that, our service clubs in Barrie, I think of the Kiwanis Club, I think especially of the Rotary clubs, have often been sort of force extenders, sorry to use the sort of military metaphor for an environmental group, but in the sense of being able to expand what the city's able to do on our own. on very, very important issues, whether with, with Rotary, it's often sports facilities or improvements to our waterfront, Kiwanis with public spaces, with music festivals, even with our public spaces in recent years. And in the same way, an organization with as long-serving and dedicated a membership as Living Green Barrie can well be partners to do more than we would be able to do ourselves, whether it's with tree planting, reforestation, naturalization, all of many of the projects that that Andy's talked about today. So yeah, I think a formal item for discussion, but that would also give you a little bit of time to consider some specific direction that might make sense for that kind of partnership, and bring an item back to general committee.
Thank you. I believe Councillor Natalie Harris and I will collaborate and land something on the agenda to support conversation.
Okay, thanks for that. Any other questions for Ms. Palin? Councillor Thompson.
Through you, Mayor Lehman, to Andy, I just want to thank you for your presentation and the work and dedication you've had in our community. But I really appreciate your approach with bringing it to the individual household. That is something that gets lost. And I think it's got a great impact. And I know some of my colleagues would probably like slide 11 best, but I just wanted to point out in slide 2 that 25% of the people belong to Ward 5. So thank you.
And those are just Peter Burston's neighbors. Thank you very much, Councillor Thompson. Any other questions for Andy? Okay, seeing none. Oh, sorry, Councillor Jim Harris, go ahead.
Thank you, Marilyn. I'm not sure why Councillor Thompson likes the slide 11 so much. I'm just curious now, but just in all seriousness, I want to thank Andy. Andy, you were supportive of the spring clean. Obviously, the spring into clean was canceled this year, and our staff, wonderful staff, gave us some kits to give out to residents. And thank you. You're very quick to identify when we had shared that residents were doing it clean, and you offered the reward. And so thank you for that. And again, I really do like your message about individual agency. I think it's really important to know that we can all do something. It must be a corporation or municipality, or we can, as individuals, we can contribute. I think it's a really great message. And I really like the positivity that there's hope. I think it's essential. And I think it's a wonderful way of gaining supporters. I love the positive filter on things, and I think it's wonderful. So thank you for that messaging. It's really important.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Harris. Any other comments, questions for Andy? Okay, seeing none. Thank you again for the work of Living Green, and watch for more discussion on this to come very soon. Thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Okay, members of council, we will move on to inquiries of staff. Deputy Mayor Ward, any inquiries of staff? Members of council, any inquiries of staff? Councillor McCann.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. Through you to, I think, to Ms. Miller. I did text her earlier to say I was going to be answering this question. I had a resident call me up, and he wanted to get a building permit for his deck. And he said that city staff had mentioned there's going to be somewhere between 8 to 10 week delay on getting a deck permit. And, I actually called Deputy Mayor Ward earlier, and it was his suggestion I ask you maybe inquiries. That's why I kind of give you the heads up. I definitely don't like to put people in the spot, but tell me please there's no truth to that. Through you, Marilyn, please.
Through you, Mayor Lehman, to Councillor McCann, there is no truth to that. About a week to 10 days should be the average time for a deck permit. If a permit is required, there is a size. If it's under a certain size, then there isn't a permit required at all. All of that information is available on the city website. You can go to the page that talks about building a deck or porch, and there's all kinds of information there. And residents can apply online through Apply for that permit. And if there are any questions or issues, then the building department staff would be more than happy to help them.
And thank you, Ms. Miller. Through you, Mayor Lehman, if I may, just an add-on, please.
Yeah, go ahead, Councilor McCann.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. We actually hired more staff this summer to accommodate residential building. Is that correct?
Through you, Mayor Lehman, to Councillor McCann, the building department is fully staffed. I mean, obviously there was a little bit of back and forth between, regular turnover, but we will be hiring a few additional staff as part of our recovery program. And those staff had not been hired yet, but we are more than capable of handling the volume that we are expecting this summer.
Well, I appreciate putting some water on that fire. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Councillor McCann. Any other inquiries of staff, members of council? Seeing none, announcements. Deputy Mayor Ward, any announcements?
I have none.
All right, Councillor Aylwin and then Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. Tomorrow evening at 7 p.m., there is a public meeting for a proposed development in Ward 2. It's 217 Dunlop Street East. And residents can go to my website, keenan.ca, to find the link to register. Again, that's tomorrow at 7 p.m., a proposed development at 217 Dunlop Street East. There's also a neighborhood meeting coming up on May 4th, also a Tuesday at 5 p.m. for proposed development at 219 and 223 Bayfield Street. And the link to register for that is also on my website. Again, that's Tuesday, May 4th at 5 p.m. I also want to recognize a belated birthday of the Barrie Farmers Market. The Barrie Farmers Market celebrated their 175th birthday on April 24th, which is just astounding. Such an amazing organization in our community, older than Canada as a country itself. So congratulations to the Barrie Farmers Market, and I hope residents will take a chance to check them out. Because there are so many wonderful vendors and they've been going strong for almost 200 years now. So keep it up. Thanks so much.
It's incredible. Thanks, Councillor Owen. Councillor Thompson, go ahead.
Through you, Mayor Lehman, just to let all viewers know that this Wednesday, April 28th at 7 p.m. to 8:30, Ward 3, 4, and 5, yourself will be having a town hall, and people to register to get the link to Zoom, they can go on the city website, and we're going to have members from Barrie PD. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Kungle.
Thank you, Worship. A couple of quick items, building off of Andy and Living Green's presentation, and as highlighted by Councillor Jim Harris. So there's been lots of trash formation activities happening. Trash formation Tuesdays in Ward 3 is still occurring. Just reaching out to residents to say thank you, and seeing people across the ward doing a lot of litter pickup. And I have two shout outs. One is, if you need bags and gloves in Ward 3, reach out. I've got some left still, and then I can help you coordinate a pickup on those items if you're doing it safely within members of your household in your neighborhood. But I also want to thank staff on behalf of residents who have noticed a pickup of a lot of garbage that was collecting in a stormwater retention pond just off of Stanley and Hamner. And so I'm getting lots of applauds and lots of thank yous, and wanted to appreciate staff. I know we've done a lot of onboarding and they're already out there, and I'm seeing noticeable differences, but it is greatly appreciated, and thank you for taking care of some of those waterway areas. One reminder specific to Ward 3 as well. I'll highlight this if we've got time at the town hall, but I'll be sending some direct messaging for those living on Stoller and Osprey backing onto the ravine. We are deferring the tree planting that you would have had notices about. We are doing that in conjunction with Living Green, but again, because of the extension of the lockdown orders, we're going to formally defer that to the fall. We've bumped it a couple of times, but we're going to make the decision and just get out an updated approach this fall, and then we will proceed with the tree planting. And then lastly, I just wanted to comment, I'm not sure if this is part of other updates, but while we're having dialogue this evening around codes of conduct, I wanted to remind the public, if you hadn't seen it, that there is now an open public consultation, an open public survey that started recently. It's open until July 15th. And that is for any member of the public or member of any municipal council to give feedback on improvements with our Municipal Act with respects to how we might strengthen codes of conduct. So I'll just identify that, and you can find that on the ministry website, and that's led through Jill Dunlop. That's everything for me.
Thanks very much, Councillor Kungl. And yes, that's the Ministry of Municipal Affairs who have committed to looking at reforms or changes to the Code of Conduct, and in fact, potentially strengthening Code of Conduct punishment provisions in light of some recent cases in Ottawa and elsewhere. But that consultation is open for several months, and anybody who's interested, given this was on the agenda tonight, can go on the ministry's website and comment on what they feel should change with the Code of Conduct provisions that are in the legislation and the powers of an integrity commissioner. Councillor Natalie Harris.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. Really quickly, Councillor Kungl reminded me, I wanted to send out a special thank you to Daniel O'Keefe, who is a young man in our community who works with his personal support worker to do a lot of community garbage pickup. And he reaches out to me and we make sure that we help him to pick that up. But he's been so dedicated to doing that. And I think it deserves a shout out because he's just been nonstop working so hard to clean up our city this spring. So thanks, Daniel.
Thanks, Councillor Harris. And thanks, Daniel. Any other comments, or announcements? Announcements, members of council. Okay, seeing none, I have a few. I would like to proclaim April 28th, 2021 as National Day of Mourning. That is Wednesday. National Day of Mourning has been recognized since April 28th, 1991. It is the day on which we remember those lives lost or injured due to a workplace tragedy, and collectively renew our commitment to health and safety in the workplace and prevent further injuries, illnesses, and deaths. And that will be celebrated, or not celebrated, but recognized by the Barrie Labour Council through an online event this week. Barrie City Council is inviting applications from citizens who would like to be considered for an appointment to the Council Compensation Review Committee. The committee is being established to undertake the examination of council compensation. The application deadline is this Friday. There's more information at barrie.ca/committee vacancies. Annual spring street sweeping is underway. Takes about 10 weeks to complete sweeping across the city. There is more information on the website if you are interested in how we do street sweeping. Streetscape down on Dunlop Street is getting some finishing touches and repair work. Again, this work is happening to occur during a stay-at-home order. The city is offering 2-hour free parking in the Chase McEachern Way and Maple Avenue parking lots once the reopening occurs. But of course, there's only real reason to be coming downtown right now if you are not an essential worker is for curbside pickup. So hopefully you're not staying too long. Registration for children's spring recreation programs is now open. Check out the virtual programs like dance, art, and technology-based programs, all online, designed to keep kids active, learning, and have fun. You could visit barrie.ca/virtualrec or register at play.barrie.ca. The Community Improvement Plan is open for 2021 applications. It's open until May 15th. This is for financial incentives for eligible projects, for the redevelopment grant program, the preservation of built heritage grant program, and affordable housing development. For more information on how to apply, it's barrie.ca/planning. And also I wanted to note that to support local during the provincial stay-at-home order starting April 14th, residents who receive a parking ticket from the City of Barrie can have their ticket canceled if they provide proof of purchase from a Barrie-based restaurant in an amount equal to or greater than the set fine within 5 days after receiving the ticket. That pilot project runs until May the 14th, 2021. All parking tickets and receipts can be emailed to enforcement.services@barrie.ca. There is information online about the current status of city services in terms of what is open and closed. Everything is pretty much closed, but we do offer certain services by appointment. The landfill remains open with a reduced capacity. We do, of course, need to continue to be able to use the landfill, and there is more information on the website about processes and procedures there. Bylaws, Deputy Mayor Ward.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that leave be granted to introduce the following bills, and these bills be read a first, second, and third time this day and finally passed. Bills 38, 39, 40, and 41.
Thank you. It's moved by Deputy Mayor Ward, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that leave be granted to introduce the following bills, and these bills be read a first, second, and third time this day and finally passed. Bill 38, 39, 40, and 41. Comments or questions on the bylaws? Seeing none, those in favor, please indicate. Anybody opposed? None? That carries. Confirmation bylaw.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that leave be granted to introduce the following bill, and this bill be read a first, second, and third time this day and finally passed. Bill 42.
It's moved by Deputy Mayor Ward, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that leave be granted to introduce the following bill, and this bill be read a first, second, and third time this day and finally passed. Bill 42, the confirmation bylaw. Comments or questions? Seeing none, those in favor. Anybody opposed to the confirmation bylaw? Nobody ever is. Can I have a motion to adjourn? Moved by Councillor Natalie Harris, seconded by Councillor Claire Riepma. We will see you tomorrow night for Planning Committee. Thank you, everyone. Good night.